This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeandfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeandfilm. Welcome to A Life in Film. I'm Elliot James Langridge. I'm an actor, writer, and apparently a podcaster, and I love film. This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story? Our guest today has done every job on a film set, from getting coffee to producing, working her way all the way from the bottom to the top. She has now directed her first feature debut, Grey Matter, and with her second film already in post-production. Our guest today is director Arabella Burfitt-Dons. Grey Matter is premiering at London Film Week this Sunday, 10th of December at Garden Cinema in Covent Garden. There'll be a Q&A, and if you want to get tickets, they're available in the link below the video.
It's a life in film. 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 Woo!
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. It's been a long time.
It's been so long. It's been ages. I'm excited to catch up with you.
You haven't aged. You literally look the
Really?
same as
Oh,
last
thank
time I
you.
saw you.
You know, That's so funny. I was literally thinking the complete opposite. I was looking in the mirror and I was like, yeah, this will do. And I was like, actually, compared to when I've last seen him, he's going to be like, oh God,
Yeah,
probably
I'm
should
trying
have
to...
made more of an effort. But thank you. I'll
No,
take
you
it.
did very good. I'm trying to think. The last time I actually saw you in person was probably...
I definitely saw you at Rain Dance, I think,
Yeah, that was probably the last time.
which was that was a long time ago.
Yeah. It was 2018, was it?
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah. Before all the madness. Yeah, I know you were there because there's a picture that always makes me laugh. I think I picked you up or something.
Oh, right, of us, not just
Yeah,
of
yeah. Yeah, just a few. Yeah, God, that must be the last time. So yeah, you're doing well. You look the same. You're looking
Oh,
exactly
great.
the same as you did.
Thank you. Oh, you know how to flatter a girl. You as well. You always look. I can't remember how old you are, but I know you always look much younger than you are. We joked about that on We the Kings, that you often had castings that were much younger than you were, and I couldn't believe your age.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
you
think
still look
because I was meant to be. I was meant to be ridiculous
17.
age, 17. Yeah, because there was the one line where I actually say my age, and I was like, I can't. Can I say
can't.
that? Because then I'm pointing it out, and people are going, I think I was 27.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. I remember you saying.
Yeah.
Excuse my dog floating around.
No,
She's
that's
so
all right. I did wonder. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, she's so needy. If I try and just put her outside the room, she'll just cause all sorts of audio issues for us. So
That's all good.
I thought I'd just let her roam around and
No worries. So how did it all begin? What was why did you get interested in, producing, directing? And I know along the way, you've had loads, you've kind of done everything on a film set. You've had all kind of odd jobs to get to where you are, which it seems the typical story of people finding their way up the ladder. But what was that first kind of interest? How did it all begin?
I'm really sorry, but my dog has just started humping her toy, and I just can't start with her doing that because I'm literally just adjusting my seat, thinking, can I try and block this? And I was like, you know what, this is just way too distracting. I'm just gonna throw this toy away that she seems to have a bit of a crush on.
I thought that was the dog you just picked up then. I was like, it's very small.
Yeah, no. I actually first got it for her. It's meant to be like a mother, when they first come to you when they're a puppy. And I thought, this would be sweet, something to kind of look after her to make her feel like she's not alone. And it turned into that. So
I
Yeah,
love
that
her.
was bad. But anyway, I'm very sorry. But
That's all right.
yes. That's never happened before.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so I definitely came to film kind of later in life, in the sense that I wasn't sort of sure of what I wanted to do from the very beginning and early on at school. And yeah, it was sort of yeah, it was interesting because I actually studied engineering at university, which is just so different from what I do now. And I was always trying to sort of figure out what it was that I wanted to do, um, and yeah, and I never really knew. I've always loved films, but I studied engineering and I kind of went to university doing that, and I just was so miserable. I did a job in the industry, and I just hated it, hated life. And I just knew that I needed something creative in my life, but I just didn't really know exactly what it was. And so I basically just quit my job. I said I had no idea what I was going to do. And my boss thought I was absolutely mad. You know, I had a very standard career in front of me, if I stayed, you know. Um, and yeah, so I kind of left, and then basically I went to New York. And you know, I'd grown up watching films, you know, classic American movies, a lot of which are obviously always sort of set in New York. I'd never been there before. And yeah, I was just kind of really excited I fell in love with the city, and it kind of felt like I was in a movie. And my sister's an actress, and she was acting in a film out there. And yeah, and so I helped out on her project and kind of saw what it was all about. And I just loved it, you know, and I just kind of got yeah, fell in love with it. And I went around the city and I met people, I spoke to people in the industry. And I just thought it was fascinating. And so yeah, I kind of did my research and then went back to London and knew that actually film was the industry that I wanted to kind of, yeah, get into. And yeah, and so I just had to kind of start from the beginning. I didn't know anyone in London. None of my friends were in the industry, and I just had to kind of completely start from scratch and get any job I could, like a runner, production assistant, and just kind of go from there, really.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think, because obviously that's weird for me. I've never heard any of that before, so it's really interesting. You went to New York and everything else. For the audience, just to explain, we've worked together. I can't even think how many years ago it was now. Like 7 years ago, maybe. Something like that. And so I'm guessing that was further down the line. But how old were you when you went to New York? What sort of age are we talking?
I was, I think, 20. So no, 21. Yeah, about 21. It was post university. I did 1 year of a job out after university, and that's when I went. So yeah, maybe 22 actually. Yeah.
And so what was the first, like, coming back from New York and then like trying to get any job you can? I mean, in terms of advice, I mean, things have probably changed a little bit since then, but how did you get that first job? Like, what were you doing? Were you going on like Mandy.com, or was it kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't have a clue now, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, so I definitely Mandy I'd heard about in America. When I was in New York again, it was just literally talking to as many people as I could. There was a guy out in New York actually who I lived with, who worked on a film that my sister was in, and he was just the coolest dude. He was so open. He was like, Arabella, you want to work in film? Yeah, you should do it. You know, I'll help you out. He was just so cool. And he actually said to me, so I went to New York for literally 3 weeks, had this sort of epiphany and, you know, realized what I wanted to do. And then I just kind of didn't get on my flight home and decided I needed to sort of stay here. It was all a bit strange. So I needed to stay here and just kind of explore this new idea I had. So I turned up at this guy's place that he was living in. It was like a sort of shared creative condo type thing in Brooklyn. And he was like, yeah, you can stay with me, Arabella, like do whatever you need. And so I literally turned up at his door. I mean, I honestly would never do this now, obviously. I turned up at his door and said, I really hope that was a genuine offer because I have no money. And I've just not got on my flight, and I just feel like this is where I need to be right now, and I
Oh
need
my
to
God.
explore this idea. And he was like, I guess you're staying with me now. But
Wow,
so
that's so nice of him, though. He could
I
have been
know,
like, no, I was just saying that. And you've been like,
I know, poor guy. So I shared a room with him, and in this like thing, we were in bunk beds, and there was about 16 people living there. But they were all creatives, and so that's kind of how I started, just chatting to them. But when I got back to London, I had heard about Mandy, and had sort of got a little bit of advice from all those people in America. Was slightly different then, but Mandy was a big thing in the US. It wasn't really big in the UK actually, but I definitely was on that. I think Shooting People, maybe a couple of other websites. But I just tried everything I could, applied for everything, pretty much whatever it was, wrote letters, that sort of thing. And eventually I think I got onto a couple of short films. And then I just eventually got an interview for one job, and I sat there opposite the line producer. It was for a production assistant role, and I quite literally begged. I pitched for my life. I said, look, this is what I want to do. I will work hard. I will move rubbish. I will work long hours. I don't care what it is. I'm a grafter and I'll work hard for it. And I just, basically begged for that opportunity, because I thought that was going to be my real break into getting my first job. And, luckily she did give me a job. But I think my journey kind of from there was actually dictated a lot by that interview I had. So this line producer said to me, because I explained my ambitions, I've always been a very ambitious person and very driven, and I think that was very influenced by my parents. But like I said, I didn't know what it was until then. And so I said, I want to be a director. I'm going to be, basically my plan to go into directing was to produce and then to direct. And that was kind of the path that I set out for myself. And so I sat in this interview and I said, I'm going to be a producer and I'm going to produce films. And I kind of gave a timeline of how quickly I planned to do all this stuff. And she said to me that it's going to take you 20 years to get to even production manager. And kind of almost told me off. It was a little bit disheartening. She explained how the process works, and you've got to start as a runner, and to get this production assistant job is a lot, considering you have no experience. And she took a real kind of gamble on me. But she said it's going to take 20 years to be a PM, and then you step up. And that was the moment that I realized that I had to just go off piste, basically, and kind of do things myself, and not go the traditional route, which I think is a great route, and it's definitely one that a lot of people could pursue. But I knew that just the way I'm made and always have been, I needed to do things for myself and just kind of go for it. And so I just started a company and started producing, and that was sort of my path. So I definitely took any job I could, and then I decided to just go AWOL and just do things myself, basically.
Yeah. Well, hats off, because I mean, obviously I've been following your career and I've been aware of what you've been doing, everything else, but like then just seeing that you've gone and done the things that you wanted to do, the fact that correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm obviously looking at your IMDb, but like the fact that you've directed 2 films recently, or you've got a whole list of things coming up, it's crazy. And that was the one thing I do remember when we worked together. I was like, fucking hell, who's this? She's like driven and like really on it, and like just I knew at the time, I was like, I'm gonna keep an eye on you, because I think you're gonna do really well. You're just so driven. I did. That was the one thing I really remember. I was like, God, like you've got your shit together, and you're like
I think honestly,
driving this.
I think honestly, someone said to me recently, which sounds, we were laughing about it on the film I'd just been shooting. The DOP and I, we were just laughing about a crazy day we'd had, God knows how many hours, hadn't slept in weeks. By this point, sort of delirious in the process and talking probably rubbish, but we were saying how hard it is. You work on set and we were in a blizzard, we're on the beach. It was sunny. We had 20 minutes to get a scene before these black clouds just absolutely coming for us. And a blizzard came. I mean, it's just the most extreme storm. And it was so sudden. I was head to toe drenched right to my underwear and, in all sorts of places. It was just mental, and we were laughing about this. And I was saying that I actually would compare filmmaking to the military. And I know that sounds crazy, and I'm not trying to sort of, make it sound like anything it isn't, but it's more just the lengths that you go to and the extremes you put yourself through to make the film is crazy. And I actually think a lot of my influence maybe even came from the fact that my father was in the Air Force. He was a military man. And so I definitely was raised with that kind of military mindset. And I even did, RAF cadets because my father was a pilot, and my father is in the Air Force basically, and then went into flying. So I went into the RAF cadets when I was at school. And yes, I definitely had that sort of military upbringing early on. And I just think it does align a little bit with military because it's just crazy how you have to push yourself. And it definitely reminds me of some of those sort of crazy camps that I used to go on. And you've got a team of people and, you've got to camp overnight in the rain and no sleep and stay up all night with these crazy guns, like, making sure that the pretend enemy weren't turning up. And, you cry, you literally wake up and people shouting at you, and I literally tears like rolling down your eyes, but you just kept going. And I think it does feel like that in film sometimes. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it. But it's insanity at the same time. And I kind of love the challenge, and I think particularly in indie filmmaking, which I think is, maybe quite different to sort of traditional studio routes, things, can be a little bit crazy, even more so because there's less money and, things are done a little bit differently. And, quite often I've done projects where it's missing a few things it should have. And, maybe that film was one of those things where it was just, you've just got to find a way through. You've just got to find a way to get that film done. And with the money you have, the people you have, and the time you have. And you've also got to rally the troops as well. Waving.
Without mutiny.
Do you not think that's right? I honestly do.
Yeah, 100%. I think I don't know how people can do 9-to-5 jobs and not, give a shit and kind of put in that half-ass it. There's nothing half-assed about the film industry. If you're doing this, you have to love it, because otherwise it's just too much. You just go, fuck this, I'm not doing this. I don't care about this. You just walk off. You'd be gone within like 6 months. Yeah, it has to be driven by passion. And when you think back to some of the hours and some of the days that you do, you think, God, it's a good thing I love this, because there's no way I'd do this for any other job. Like it is insane.
Totally. And you don't feel, despite the long hours and the hard work and everything, I never feel like I'm working, because it's so within me. It's such a driving force. And I think that's the amazing thing about film, because if you are a filmmaker in any form, I think it's because you kind of, that is who you are. And if you're lucky enough to find that that's who you are, which I was, then it's amazing, because you find your purpose in life, you find what makes you feel fulfilled, and you never do feel like you're working, even in those, points when you just look around at where you are and what you're doing and just think, what the hell am I doing? There's a lot of moments
when you're 18 hours into a day and you think, this can't be legal.
Yes, yeah. What am I doing? How did I get here? And I'm doing all this for a little bit of footage.
Yeah. And yet I'm still enjoying it. Sometimes though, I do find like when you're doing 6-day weeks, sometimes even when you're doing 7-day weeks, and you get to the end of a job and your body just kind of goes, ugh, and you suddenly just ill because your body just suddenly goes, okay, now you can let go. And you're like in bed for a week and you're like, oh my
I
God.
schedule in my illnesses after shoots. There's a 2-week period.
Yeah.
I know after those two days where I've had 2 nights sleep, 12 hours, I'm like, it's coming. It's coming.
You've as you kind of mentioned there, you dotted around, you did a few different jobs on set. Primarily now you have your company, you're producing, but is directing is that the goal? Is that what you enjoy the most? Is that where you're most comfortable and that's what you want to continue doing?
Yeah, I think directing was always the goal, and I think it's definitely kind of who I am and what I want to do long term now. I think it's a particularly interesting one for me because I feel like I have this rare kind of I'm made up in the way that I have both the right side and the left side of the brain, and I think directing kind of fulfills that, where it has all the creativity that I love, where you can, let your creativity go wild, but it's also, you've got a lot of problem solving and, making that film work, working with actors, working with departments and, coming up with a way to make the film, as well as, how you want to make it and what you want it to look like and what story you want to tell. And that's something that I've always been drawn to. And the more research I did very early on and, trying different things, learning different departments and different skills, which I think is important as well, to be sure of what it is that you want to do. That's definitely my place, and I love it. I think I went through the producing route because I realized that when I had that epiphany kind of eureka moment, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a director. That's what it is that I am, and that's what it is that I want to do, and that's what I'm great at and going to be really great at. And I turned around and asked 20 other people and got really excited by, what is it you want to do this? Oh, I'm a spark, but I want to be a director. Oh, I'm an art department assistant, but I want to be a director. And I suddenly realized every other person around me wants to be a director. So it's the most competitive job there is. So, like I touched on earlier about sort of doing things my way, I just came up with a made up path to get there. And I thought producing would be it. I wanted to learn the side of the business in terms of how to make a film and how to actually get it out there and how to do all those things, and how does that all work, and what do people want to watch, and how does that feed into the process. Because I thought, if I can do all that, then I'll be able to gain my skills with directing alongside and then end up moving into it, which I've now done. And yeah, so I won't probably go back to producing, and you never say never, but directing I'm doing that full time now, and I'm loving it. So it's all sort of working out so far.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because you obviously started directing short films, and then you've got Grey Matter and Dragged Up Dirty. And am I right in thinking they're both completed, so they're done, but they haven't come out yet?
Yeah, so Grey Matter's premiering at Female Eye Film Festival in Toronto, and we're in competition for a couple of awards, so that's really exciting.
Nice.
And then we are also then going to Regina International Film Festival the week after in Saskatchewan, where we're nominated for Best International Feature as well. So it's doing the festival circuit. And Dragged Up Dirty, we've locked the edit, so we're in post-production at the moment. It's done most of the music, so just getting into that fun sort of final stage with VFX and sound and things like that. So it'll come out, I believe, early next year, hopefully. So that has theatrical release in a few countries at the moment, so that's exciting. And and then I'm about to shoot my next film in America, which is exciting, because it's sort of, I feel like I've come full circle to go sort of back to America as a director is really exciting. So
Amazing. What's the one that you're shooting out in America? Can you say, or you want to keep that?
Yeah, so it's a comedy action called Too Far Gone, and it's kind of like a road trip movie about two best friends, young girls who kind of get themselves into trouble and they witness a murder and they end up kind of chased by the cops and these sort of dangerous criminals, and yeah, they end up getting themselves into all sorts of trouble. It's a lot of fun. It's a really fun film. Lots of action and very silly moments, and yeah, just I'm excited. It'll be a really fun one. So in those days when it's sort of 18 hours, there'll still be a lot of laughter, which I think is probably one thing I'm really looking forward to.
How did that come about? The first of the feature films, like going from a short to then, convincing people that you could direct a feature. What was the process there? Because I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast are obviously trying to do exactly what you've done. Can you kind of break that down for us?
Yeah, so I think obviously I produced, I can't know exactly, maybe 7 features or so. So I think having that portfolio from a producing standpoint, really helps, because obviously done features in that capacity. So having that portfolio as part of the sort of pitch, I may not have directed a feature before, but I have produced these features and I've directed this short film and you can watch this, and having a sort of a show reel to kind of showcase that, okay, yeah, she does know what she's doing, definitely helps. I think this film, in particular, being my debut, I wanted it to be something that was meaningful, that it had heart and touched on, something topical that I felt like it, was a story that needed to be told, and definitely probably wouldn't have got made by a studio. And that's something that I wanted to do. And I also think the good thing about sort of doing that approach is that it meant that when I was pitching the film, the project in itself also resonated with people, because they understand why you're making the film, as well as it not just being about who wants to make the film. It's like, okay, you want to do this. Why are you so important to be why is it important that you're the person that's sort of leading the helm in this project? And if you have a good why, then that really helps, I think, which I did. So yeah, I think that was a big plus, and that really helped to kind of get it all going.
How do you source your writers? Like, how do people send you scripts and go, I'd love you to direct this? Like, I'm sure now that you've done a few things, that is maybe more of the process, but I guess early on it's like, did you kind of find the writers? Did you find the scripts? Was it friends that wrote the scripts and then you're like, oh, actually this is pretty good? How do you kind of find the next project?
So I definitely do get sent scripts a lot. I think because of when I moved into directing, obviously I had produced a lot and I have my own company, W4 Films. So I'd have a lot of submissions through the company, even some in the post sometimes that turn up, which I always think is, very sweet. But yeah, so I do get sent quite a lot of scripts, and you can also go through agencies as well if there's something in particular that you feel like you want a project, you want to be made in a certain way, and maybe you want to work with a certain writer. So I've also done outreach that way too. But Grey Matter was a submission to me, and I looked for a long time, about 2 years. I was looking for my debut. I also, to the point where I started writing myself, because I just didn't think I was going to be able to find the right person and the right project. But eventually it did come through, and I knew instantly it was the one that I wanted to make. So I think, I guess my advice would be for any writers looking for, their projects to be made or produced or optioned, is to reach out, because I get reached out a lot on LinkedIn and various different places. And, I guess, to be completely honest, I do get so many, it's hard to look at all of them, but I actually do look at them. I respond to most of them where I can, and take the time. And even if you don't get a response, I think if you are sending the sort of one-liner elevator pitch, I certainly always read them. I'm always looking, because you're always looking for material, and I love working with writers personally. So I think that approach really works. It may feel like you're bashing your head against the wall, because you've got to put a lot out there, but maybe smaller companies would be a good way to go as well, because I'm W4 is a small company, and I'm also just one person, and I love reading those. So
I think I've made the mistake of, I've written quite a few scripts, but I always write things that I'm like, yeah, I'm not really going to take the budget into account. I'm just going to write something I really want to see. And then I'm reading it back thinking, fuck, this is like 60 million. Like, I'm like, who am I going to send this to? First time writing, they're going to go, yeah, we'll make that. So I need to, with my scripts, I need to write something a bit more kind of reasonable and think about the budget more, I guess. But so is it now this is just personally me asking you, I need to get the information, but in terms of you say there that sometimes people send you one-liners or a synopsis, is that kind of a better way to go than like sending them a whole 100-page script and like, read this, because they're unlikely to want to do that? Is that a more likely thing where they go, right, here's the elevator pitch, if you like that, here's the first 10 pages or whatever? Is that the usual process?
Yeah, definitely. So if you send like a log line, a title, log line, genre, and then a short synopsis, but like a pretty short one, that to me would be a sort of elevator pitch. And then I guess you could put a kind of description with it as well, sort of a little bit about the film, and anything that might entice the director or more. But that to me is the sort of elevator pitch, I guess. It all would just fit on one page. And if it's something that they think, okay, I know, firstly, I love the sound of it, or secondly, I know an investor who's looking for exactly that kind of film, it's the genre that I like, then I would go back to something like that and say, this sounds interesting, can I read the script? And then I'd ask for the script, and then I'll send it over. I guess another reason why that might be a good approach is because you don't really want to send your script everywhere. I mean, I guess there's no harm in it really, but if you're being protective and careful, and also, why should you send all your hard work to someone that isn't even looking at it? At least if you know that they're coming back and saying, hey, this is actually something that could be interesting, they're reading it, which is kind of nice. It's almost like you're throwing them a carrot, and then if they're excited, then they might ask for the script. And that definitely works for me. If I'm looking, I don't really ever know what I'm looking for, but there are things I'm looking for, and then when I see something that kind of, oh yeah, that's something, then I'll go back and say, yeah, that could be something, and can I have a look?
I've asked, there's been various guests on here that I always ask, because I've been writing stuff, and I'm always like just trying to find out that next kind of nugget of information, maybe that'll help. And what you've said there is like, that makes perfect sense. A lot of people have said that it needs to be short, almost like a little treatment, so that people can kind of get an idea, and they'll know whether or not they're interested in it at all. But something that it was an American producer said, I don't know if it's the same here, but he said that if you haven't got an agent as a writer, in America, a lot of people, they can't even, if you send them the script, they're not allowed to look at it because it's unsolicited. Do you get a lot of unsolicited scripts sent your way, or emails with the log line, or is it kind of people with agents and things like that?
I do get a lot of unsolicited scripts. I know that a lot of companies are sort of no unsolicited scripts, and they kind of put that on their websites, things like that. I don't, but W4 is an indie company, and I'm just, like I said, I'm just a person like everyone else, so it doesn't really bother me where it comes from. I think obviously the bigger companies may have more of an issue with it. I know that in America the process is slightly different, I think, because I don't know as much about it, but I know about, obviously about to do this film, a bit about the unions. Obviously the strikes at the moment are kind of very relevant, and I think that kind of feeds into maybe something to do with it, because they only sort of work with agents or people in the union. I'm not really sure, but I think part of wanting scripts from writers with agents is maybe just a way to filter as well, I think, quality, because obviously if writers have agents, then they're doing something right. I don't really know, I'm just assuming. But
Oh, it makes sense.
they would be flooded with stuff all the time, so by least filtering it only through agents, they're only talking to agents that maybe they've worked with before, they have a good rapport with, so that's kind of makes it easier for them. But I think if you're not represented by an agent, then I suppose my thoughts and advice would be then to go more direct route and look for directors and look for people, like me, that don't care. Like Grey Matter, that was a debut screenplay from a writer who I almost don't want to promote too much, because I feel like she's my little golden nugget. She's written the next film I'm doing in America.
Oh, wow.
She's absolutely incredible. I love her tone of voice. I love the way she writes. She is a published author, but Grey Matter was her debut screenplay. And yeah, I just think she's amazing. There's so much talent out there, just because you're with an agent, it doesn't mean anything. Talent is talent, So
I'm really looking forward to seeing these films. Because I know you were, even when we were shooting, you were kind of talking about all these things that you wanted to do, and I remember thinking, "Go get it, girl," and you're getting it. So like, that's good. But yeah, anyway, I'm talking too much about me and writing and trying to find out, get little nuggets from you. But to go back to you, your first day, like on a set directing for the first time, after all this moments of being like, oh, this is what I really want to do. When you actually got there and you were on set directing for the first time, was there a lot of pressure there, or were you kind of like, no, this is where I feel comfortable here. This is where I should be?
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. No, it's scary. It's like anything, the best things lie on the other side of fear. It's one of my favorite quotes. If something doesn't make you feel nervous and it doesn't scare you, then you're not putting yourself outside your comfort zone. And I think that's an important thing. Of course, it's terrifying. You care about anything, you're going to be nervous about it. So for sure. I mean, in the beginning and the sort of the first day when I was directing, it's scary, but then also it kind of flooded me with such a buzz, because I suddenly felt this is where I'm meant to be, and I'm suddenly there doing it. And that is such a great feeling in an industry that is so, all over the place a lot of the time. It can it can make you feel kind of dizzy, and you just think, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I still headed in the direction I wanted to be going this whole time? And, am I on track? I think those are questions that filmmakers probably ask themselves a lot. And I think that's very common. It's certainly something that, I've felt a lot on my journey. But those are little moments that remind you that this path that you made up and set for yourself actually is working, and you're doing what you set out to do. I think it is important to kind of enjoy those moments, because, in a couple of days you'll forget, and then you'll be like, what's my next project and what am I doing next? So those are nice moments, and I definitely felt that. I think with my debut feature, that was a big moment for me to feel like that, because I'm a Capricorn, so I'm very goal orientated, and as you said, I'm sort of very driven and conscientious, but I always set myself goals. And in fact, every year I kind of do this thing where I write to myself. It sounds crazy, but I write to myself and I just sort of evaluate everything I've been doing, everything I want to do, and how I'm doing it, and just kind of remind myself where I'm going, and am I on track to my next goal, and what I'm, where I'm trying to go. And a big thing for me has always been, for the last 7 years, was I want to direct my first feature by the time I'm 30. Those goals can be a little bit stupid really, and maybe a bit dangerous, because if you miss them, it can feel like the end of the world. But yeah, I know. But I did do it, and that was another thing for me. I was like, I'm on set and I'm making this film, and it's exciting, and I've made it in my own way, and that's a nice moment.
Now for a quick break. Are you a writer, director, actor, costume designer, perhaps makeup artist? Are you interested in camera? This is the place to share your journey. We want to hear from you. How did you start your career? Has it started yet? And perhaps, if you're feeling brave, share with us your most embarrassing film-related moment. So slip into our DMs at Life in Film Pod on Instagram. Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Life in Film, where you'll get episodes early and uncut, amongst other treats. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod, and find our video episodes on YouTube by searching Elliot James Langridge Life in Film. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9 to 5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/Life in Film. That's betterhelp.com/Life in Film. And back to the show.
I think that sounds like a really good idea. It feels like something I should probably be doing, like because then once it's there, it's almost like you can remind yourself of, okay, tick that one off, I've done that, and then it's kind of like it's a list, isn't it? No, that sounds like a legit way of doing it, because otherwise you kind of just bob around forgetting what you were aiming for. And I know being freelance, like obviously being an actor and then everything else, it's a similar thing, isn't it, where you're kind of like, well, maybe I should be creating my own work and doing my own things. But I'm so glad to see that you're actually doing this and going off to America to do a film. I mean, that sounds crazy. Like, would you have, when you first started this out, someone said to you, in this many years, you're going to be going to America and shooting a film. You will have already done a couple of movies by then. And this is, would you have believed it? I guess you would, because it's on your list. But
it's on my list, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't have. I mean, definitely when I was in New York and I first fell in love with this idea, I never would have believed in, 9 years later, I would be in America directing, a big film. There's no way.
The person that told you it would take you 20 years to get to, was it production manager, did she say?
Production manager, yeah. I know.
Feel a little bit smug now. That is good. So how long has it been? Has it been 9 years, did you say? 8, 9 years?
Yeah, it's been 9 years.
Wow.
Sounds like a long time because it doesn't feel like 9 years ago, but it's still a lot. I think I've produced 8 features and directing my 3rd. That's pretty good going in 9 years.
It's one a year. Essentially, you produce one a year, and then you've managed to fit in doing like directing as well. And I mean, that's madness. That's crazy. Congratulations. And I hope that it just keeps going. And I know you've got a few other projects as well that are coming. And the list, your IMDb list, I looked at it and was like, Jesus Christ. Like, you look up Robert De Niro and he hasn't got as many things as you have. So you're doing very well.
You want Liv to work today?
No, I got fired yesterday.
What? What did you do? This till's closed.
Why do you always think I did something? The customer's not always right, that's all I'm saying.
Don't think you're going to be sitting around the house wondering.
I wasn't going to.
Come on, Chloe! Push, push, push!
You can come with me to Nan's.
Mom! Maybe she's napping. Well, in the middle of the afternoon. It's what old people do, isn't it? What's your excuse?
Mom!
What are you doing here?
It's Tuesday. We go shopping.
You're forgetting things. I am not forgetting things.
Is Nan okay?
What do you know about Alzheimer's, Mrs. Els?
Nan, what's that racket?
These episodes will become more frequent, as will the risk of accidents. And eventually, your mother is going to need help doing even simple things.
What do you want to do?
What are you talking about?
Something you want to do before you forget.
They'll send me away.
I won't let them.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Something worth remembering, eh?
So Grey Matter is a film about Alzheimer's, but it's looked at from the perspective of a teenager. So it's a coming of age story for a teenager played by Eloise Smyth. And her grandmother gets diagnosed with a very advanced stage of Alzheimer's, played by Stephanie Beacham, who was obviously amazing to work with. And that was a very experience. And yeah, so it's how this disease kind of affects the family. So the granddaughter, but also the mother as well. It's a sort of cross-generational film about the grandmother, mother, and daughter in the family. And yes, obviously very topical. And, you know, Alzheimer's, I think, affects 55 million people in the world, and 10 million people a year get diagnosed with it. So it's a very relevant issue. And I think, you know, I'm excited to see how it kind of goes down at the festivals. But, you know, we have an incredible cast and just so many people that devoted their time to the project that felt like that topic was so relevant to them, which I think is one of the things that was so unique about making that film. Because when I read the script, which was written by Elizabeth Hribb, who was working as a military nurse, unbelievably, at the time, and the film is inspired by her grandmother, but also her time spent on dementia wards. So it's a very unique perspective, I think, to have on a script. But I think, yeah, so I just think it's, you know, I knew that it would be relevant to some people, and I wanted it to be a story that, you know, was told because it is such an important issue. But what I didn't expect is the number of people, even in the filmmaking process, that came to me and shared with me their experience with it and why it was such an important thing for them. And it's so genuine. You know, I'm not exaggerating when I say about 80% of the people involved in this film have a very close connection with the story. We even lost someone to Alzheimer's in the post-production process. The film's dedicated to them. That's how real it is, you know. And so I'm very glad, you know, I'm really proud to have made it as my debut. And, you know, like I said, Stephanie Beacham to take that role is it just said so much in itself. You know, it's so different to anything she's known for. She literally said to me when I called her up and we were chatting about the role, and she said, I'm not sure if I meant to say this, but her agent said, you know, you're never going to take this role. It's so not anything like what you normally get cast for. You know, she's known as the Colbys and this sort of glamorous, iconic character. And said, Arabella, it's exactly why I want to do it. She said, this is so important. I love this character. And I want to go through this very brave journey with you and with her. And she really did it. It was just amazing to watch and to work with her. Is very unique, and she basically took it as her kind of award-winning role, and very brave of her. I'm very proud of it to be my debut, but also proud that it's, you know, coming to screens and people will hopefully have conversations around it, and it, you know, maybe can instigate some change and awareness.
Amazing. As you say as well, it's just something that will register with so many people, and it's important to so many people. My gran had she suffered with it, and she obviously, you know, it's one of those things that affects everyone around them. And it's a horrible disease. So I mean, I can't wait to see that. It sounds very, very interesting. And let me know, like, if there's a screening when it comes to London. I'd love to come and see it. Give me a shout. But no, that sounds wicked. It also sounds like she needs to get a new agent. If her agent's like, you shouldn't do this part, it's nothing like the other things you've ever done. It's like, that's the whole point of being an actor, though. And if it's a role like that, it sounds like a great role.
Yeah, I know.
So what a bizarre thing to say. It must be hard, though, I guess, like taking on a role like that. That's a heavy role to play, and that's a lot to take on. But I'd be really interested to see her in it, because, as you say, it's not how you picture her at all. No, that sounds wicked. To finish on a lighter note.
Hey, I'm Kevin Bacon.
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm Kevin Bacon.
Everyone in the film industry is linked to Kevin Bacon within 6 degrees of separation, which is mental, really. You're connected to.
Is that a fact, or is this something you've just sort of?
No, this is a fact. Oh no, I wish I'd come up with the concept. I would be rich. No, it's a thing. There's a whole website called the Oracle of Bacon, and you can type in your name, and it'll tell you who you're connected to. It's usually a bit harder it's easier with actors, because if you're on IMDb and then they're like, and it'll find it. And I typed your name in, and I was struggling to get the answer. But then I realized I'm connected to you, so therefore my connection to Kevin Bacon is your connection. So I've essentially just taken what my connection is and then added you.
Okay.
It makes sense. So let me read it out to you. I've got it here. So you, Arabella, you did a film called We the Kings with me, Elliot Langridge. Yes. I did a film called Killers Anonymous with Gary Oldman, and then Gary Oldman did a film with Kevin Bacon. That's Kevin Bacon's connection.
There we go.
Your connection is that three people? Yeah.
Yeah, 3 degrees.
Me, Garrett. Yeah, it's 3 degrees. I always struggle with that. I'm like, is that 3? So you're 3 degrees from Kevin Bacon. So that's actually it's a pretty good one.
So what you're saying is, when I want to cast Kevin Bacon, I have to come to you.
Yeah, best mates. I just give him a call.
Most embarrassing moments,
I mean, there's a lot, you know. I think one thing that if any of my friends are watching, they will definitely say, they'll have things to say. You know, I'm very clumsy and I'm very accident prone, and I just always have been since young. So I definitely get myself in silly situations a lot. So I'm sure they would have lots of things to say. I don't know if I can think of any necessarily to hand like the most embarrassing, but I suppose one thing that maybe comes to mind. So when we were filming Grey Matter, we had an underwater scene, and it's underwater, and basically Eloise Smyth has to jump in the water, and she's actually kind of a similar height. She's got blonde hair like me, and we needed a sort of double to kind of, you know, check on camera, do rehearsals and stuff, just to check the shot. So, you know, rather than make someone else go in, we also needed to, you know, check the monitor. The monitor wasn't working outside of the water. There was some issue with the pterodec or something. So the only way for me to watch would be to be in the water. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to get right there into the action, and I'm going to get in the water and save some of my crew. And so I got in, did the jump thing, and it's just me and the DOP and all of the crew all the way around the pool watching. And so I'm just feeling pretty like good about myself. And I go over to the side of the pool, and we had to sort of weight the camera down because there was some sort of issue with it. We wanted it to be low down in the water. And so like the camera team gave us some sandbags to try and weight it down. And so I'm swim to the side of the pool, and I grab these sandbags and I go over to try and like swim over to DOP, and I just sunk. I literally just sunk. I couldn't swim. They were so heavy. And what's more embarrassing is, some of those more awkward moments of when you kind of just slowly struggle. That was it, because I sunk and they're really heavy, but I was too embarrassed for it to look like I couldn't swim. So I was really trying. So I was just like coming up and down under the water, and everyone was just looking at me. I really thought this was going to be my moment, when I just, I don't know what I thought, but yeah, it was very embarrassing. I'm just
whatever you
slowly
thought
sinking.
was not what happened. That's
everyone was
hilarious.
watching the director drown, basically. No, not really.
Oh God! Did you think I'm actually gonna have to let this go? Did you?
There was many moments. I honestly, but my pride, I just don't like to quit with things. I said, I'm not gonna, but then I basically could have drowned in the process, just, underwater trying to hold these sandbags.
That reminds me of, have you seen it's like a clip of a dad with his daughter on his shoulders, and he's like by the edge of a pool, or maybe he's in the sea, edge of a boat or a pool or something, and his daughter's on his shoulders, but his daughter's like, not small, she's like 5 or 6, something like that. She's on his shoulders, and he obviously thinks, oh, I can swim over to the shore. It's like maybe 5 meters or whatever, and he goes to swim, and the daughter's really funny. She's like holding on, like covering his eyes almost, and he's like like that, because he realizes that she's heavier than he thinks, and he's like literally drowning. He's under the water, and his arms are doing this, and the daughter's going like that, and he gets out the other side, and he's like he very nearly drowned. It's so funny though, because the daughter's just laughing the whole time. I've got that image of you with your sandbag just like hanging on. I'll send you the clip. I might even put the clip in while you're telling your story.
She don't realize what she's doing to her dad.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Arabella. This has been great, and thanks for coming on and like sharing your story and your words of wisdom. I hope I didn't pick your brains too much. I want to learn from you, to be fair. Like you've done really well, and yeah, I appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's a lot of fun. It's great to catch up.
It's a Life in Film, motherfucker. Subscribe and like and follow.
Grey Matter is premiering at London Film Week this Sunday, 10th of December at Garden Cinema in Covent Garden. There'll be a Q&A, and if you want to get tickets, they're available in the link below the video. Grey Matter will be released in UK cinemas in February. Thank you to our guest Arabella. And as always, thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp.